I think when it comes to energy, if we're looking about the physical commodities, and we think about the oil price, I think there probably is room for it to move a little higher. It really comes down to two factors, though. That is that there will be some demand pickup as the economy recovers. That's going to be curtailed to a certain extent by the fact we don't have international travel coming back to a large extent yet, and that's such an important source of demand. And then on the supply side, we are still relying on those OPEC plus members to keep that supply relatively curtailed. And I think there's still a question about that in terms of the amount of supply coming on relative to demand. So I think there's room for oil prices to move a little bit higher in this environment, but not thinking about a price of 80 or $90 a barrel. Maybe it goes up by $5 or $10 more from here. The disconnect, though, is when it comes to the energy markets, thinking about the equities and equity outlook for, say, oil companies. And that's where I think there's greater focus on things like sustainable investing, ESG, and really some policies coming out of the US in terms of what we may see in an infrastructure package or that stimulus package from the US administration and how that may play through in thinking about energy markets in the future.
So at JPMorgan Asset Management, you would rather put your eggs in the new energy or the ESG and sort of green renewable basket as opposed to traditional energy?
I think the distinction there is not necessarily about the renewables versus the non-renewables. It's about the company's approach to sustainable investing and how they're pivoting, or at least making room for that in their corporate plans. And we're seeing a large number of companies already do this. And then you've got to balance that out by valuations. I mean, some of those well-known sort of renewable names have moved quite far. So I think it's a case by case basis when looking at these stocks. The important thing from that sustainable point of view, though, is really addressing that when thinking about the investment landscape, because it is such a major theme that's coming through in terms of investors and markets, as well as governments and how this fiscal money is being spent in the coming years. So I think it's an unavoidable part of investing in the future, whereas largely we have been able to sort of move around that and think about companies and the oil price rather than thinking about how they're adapting to this new change.